Okay, so it's 2 after, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi everybody, and welcome to today's training, Exploring the SEAL Catalog. For this webinar, we are trying something a little new. I've actually only done this training once before, back in December of 2020, so that was almost 2 years ago. So at the SEAL 101 trainings, I typically spend about 10 to 15 minutes talking very specifically about the catalog and about how to structure your searches. But there's just so much more that we could talk about. So today's webinar is really a chance for us to take a deeper look and explore the catalog in a little more detail. And I'd like to start by thanking everyone for taking time out of your day to attend. It's really great to see you all here, virtually at least. And if you haven't met me before, my name is Kelsey Milner, and I am the Resource Sharing and Cataloging Librarian here at Southeastern. So before we get started, I wanted to make just a few housekeeping notes. We've turned on closed captioning. And as you probably saw, we are also recording this webinar, and we'll make it available to everyone who registered along with this PowerPoint. I've baked in some time to address questions as we go along. It is a little challenging to see the chat in Zoom while I'm doing a screen share. I don't know if anyone else ever has that problem. So I'll be stopping periodically to check for questions between every 5 to 10 minutes. I'm also going to try and make sure I read out all the questions that come in for anyone who happens to be watching the recording later. These breaks will also give us a little bit of a breather between the different sections. So what are we going to cover today? I always like to provide a roadmap for training so you know how the hour will be structured. I'm going to kick off today by touching on the tools behind the SEAL catalog. This section is a little more technical, so we are going to hang out in the PowerPoint for it. After talking about how SEAL works, we're going to hop into the catalog, and I'm going to touch on troubleshooting some things you might see in the catalog from time to time. After that, I'm going to go into some search techniques using boolean operators. I'm also going to do what I deem as fun catalog searches, and fun is in air quotes here, but this includes using some terms to narrow down searches by things like language and some other cool things. The SEAL catalog has two distinct functions. It's both an interlibrary loan catalog and also a general regional catalog for the Southeastern New York area. This means the catalog can access holdings data for libraries beyond just those who elect to participate in ILL. So the last thing I want to touch on today is the role of this virtual union catalog and a few different ways that it can be used. As we talk a little about the behind the scenes of SEAL, I wanted everyone to have the catalog fresh in their mind, but it did feel a little weird to hop out of the PowerPoint and then back into it, so I took the screenshot instead. I did try to make it into a GIF, but it proved too challenging. So this screenshot was taken at the moment I hit search for a rather thematic title, a kid's book called In November. This moment encapsulates what I want to focus on for this first section of the training, the tools that make this SEAL search possible. How do we get from entering this keyword to having our search results compiled and then requestable for ILL? SEAL has been in its current form since I think about 2016. Some of you might remember the old software that was used. It was called VDX. Finding something new when the time came was a tough task. The SEAL catalog had to be able to search multiple library catalogs from several different vendors at once, all of the library catalog vendors, and then structure that incoming information in a way that could be both user-friendly and also usable for regional interlibrary loan, and that is no small feat. So the product that was eventually decided on is called MasterKey Connect from the company Index Data. That company name might sound a little familiar to you, as they're also one of the key players behind the open source ILL platform Reshare. Reshare's kind of like been big in ILL news lately. MasterKey Connect is what's called a meta search system, and it allows for searching of multiple resources at once from a single interface. I've included a graphic from the Index Data website to the right, which I think visualizes this pretty nicely. There are different methods that search tools like SEAL can use to retrieve data from multiple library and system catalogs at once. And this is changing as library catalogs and discovery layers become more advanced over time. The way that SEAL does it is through a protocol called Z39.50, and it is a little old school, but it does get the job done. I'd like to share a little bit more about Z39.50. Its sort of technical definition is it's a client-server communications protocol used to facilitate the searching and retrieving of information from remote databases. And the protocol grew out of an effort in the 80s to standardize searching between some of the major catalogs at that time. including OCLC and the Library of Congress. The challenge then was that there was little consistency between different systems and how they responded to searches and requests for records. Z39.50 fixes that issue by providing a standardized language of sorts so that a search from a single place can be interpreted the same way by multiple libraries at once. I read one overview of Z39.50 that described it as an Esperanto language, which I thought was kind of a neat way of describing it. Esperanto was initially developed to be a universal second language for the planet, and to accomplish that, it took words and language structure from languages all over the world. So essentially, when a search is placed in SEAL, that request is sent to each of the individual library servers, or targets as they're called, and then they respond with results based on their interpretation of the search. Ultimately, Z39.50 acts as a sort of backdoor into library catalogs. In addition to its use in interlibrary loan, it's also still used a lot for copy cataloging because it allows libraries to retrieve good quality records at no cost. Now I'd like to drill down a bit and discuss how Z39.50 works when it comes to searching. The structure actually allows for pretty robust searches, and we see this, and we're going to go into this more when we talk about searching in SEAL, but users can search using a variety of Boolean operators. You can also use truncation, so searching just on the root part of words. Title, author, and ISBN searches are often the most effective searches, I would say. And this is something I'm going to go in more detail about. In some instances, you can search keywords from other fields in a record, such as summaries, subjects, notes, publisher, and even call numbers. And I do say in some instances just because there can sometimes be variances between individual libraries in how they configure their Z39. It's a hard thing to say, Z39.50, and access to specific fields. This is also why you might sometimes see differences in the data that is brought into SEAL searches from different libraries. So now that we've talked on the mechanism behind the SEAL search, I'd like to focus on what happens once a search is complete and the information is received in SEAL. The master key tool interprets and formats the results in a functional way. It compiles matching records and holdings information into one search result, and then it will sort these results with an algorithm that ranks them based on the terms that you entered. One thing you might have noticed when using SEAL is that results can come in over a different period of time. The differences in time are due to how long it takes the servers for individual libraries to respond to your request. The product was designed so that you can actually start viewing and clicking on search results right away, and then the results will continue to populate even as you use it. Master key will also pull out the relevant data for facets so you can better narrow down your searches further. So now we have a little more sense of what is happening when our in November search is entered. A search of each library's catalog is performed at once via Z39.50, and results are interpreted, compiled, and then formatted by the master key tool. So now that we've touched briefly on how the catalog works, I'd like to touch on troubleshooting some quirky things you might see in SEAL from time to time. But first, any questions on this section before we move on? Just going to grab some water really quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You guys should now be seeing SEAL. Okay. So some of these things that I want to talk about are a little hard to replicate in the moment, but I'll try to show you what I can. And if you have any questions or examples of your own, oh, I saw something come into the chat. Oh, you see it. Good. So I always get nervous. I'm like a little worried that you're not seeing what I think you're seeing, but okay. So I'm going to try and replicate these in a moment. And if you have any questions or examples of your own, please feel free to put these into the chat as well. So one of the noticeable things about the SEAL search is that records don't always compile onto the same record. It's hard to try and make this happen on the fly, but I'm just going to attempt it by searching the book Educated by Tara Westover. So based on the search results, it looks like these are the same book, or at least a similar edition. They have the same publication date. When you see multiple items coming into the same search, it just means that for whatever reason, the catalog didn't recognize these as the same item. And this could be due to subtle differences in the MARC records. It could also be quirks of a particular cataloger or other inconsistencies which made the catalog just in the moment decide that those two items were unique. Because the catalog is compiling these searches directly in the moment, you might also see search results look different in different search sessions. However, the catalog will always pull out different formats and have them on different records. I think it errs on the side of kind of assuming that there are different materials, and this is really helpful for interlibrary loan. Okay, so I've jokingly labeled this section, oops, I confused the catalog. And I don't know if anyone has ever encountered this, but sometimes if you do a lot of searches in a row or search a very complicated title with lots of Boolean operators, the catalog will just freeze up. And this doesn't happen too often, but just once in a while. Basically, it'll kind of stop working and the little spinning wheel will just keep going. So to deal with this, I try a couple of things. The first thing I always try is right-clicking and reloading the page, and that usually does the trick. But also sometimes I'll just completely open up a new tab and start over there from scratch. The last thing I wanted to touch on in this section is a little bit more interlibrary loan focused, but this is a question that I get a lot, so I did want to talk about it today. I want to share some of the reasons why you might do a seal search and end up on the ILO request screen that says there are no libraries available to request from. And I know this can be confusing sometimes, especially if it maybe seemed like there was a library who could send it. So I'm just going to do a quick search to show you what that message looks like. I'm going to search for the book, resource sharing in libraries. A lot of my test books for these trainings are either about cats or about libraries. So this one's on brand. Okay, so if we were to open up this title, we do see some local libraries that have the book, but if we try to request, we get our sorry, no available message. So seal pulls in everything indiscriminately. However, we filter out items that aren't requestable for several different reasons. And one reason is that the library isn't an active ILO participant. So because the catalog functions as both a regional union catalog and the ILO catalog, some libraries that are searched aren't actively sharing their materials. So you might have noticed that the seal search has these categories. These allow you to choose whether you want to use the catalog primarily for ILL, or if you want to search all libraries regardless of their lending status. You could be receiving this message if your catalog search was set to all so that it brought in results from non-lending libraries. This can also happen if a library is currently not lending materials. In your seal account, there's a way that you can turn off lending. And once you do so, your library will basically be removed as an option from this drop-down menu. And this message can also be caused by item type, which is the issue with this particular example. In your account, you can also decide what types of items you are able to loan. If a library indicates that you can't loan a particular item, such as reference books, the library also won't appear in this drop-down screen. Some item types we also turn off automatically, like ebooks, because it is very rare for a library to be able to send these due to vendor restrictions. There's also not really the infrastructure in place to share ebooks, just generally in the ILL world. So these are kind of all the reasons why you might encounter this particular message. So I'm just going to pause here and then check for any questions or thoughts or concerns or anything. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section, which is going to be all about searching. So I'd like to share a few search strategies and tips with you. And I've thought a lot on the best way to structure this section. And ultimately, I've decided to split it into two parts. So for the first part, I'm going to discuss creating increasingly complex searches in SEAL. You can make some really specific ones using Boolean operators, and also by using terms that let the catalog know to look at a specific part of an item's record, such as the title or the author and things like that. Then I'm going to move on to what I deemed earlier as those fun search techniques. I've been experimenting with the catalog a bit and wanted to share some of what I've discovered with you. And this will primarily involve incorporating some non-traditional search terms into simple searches. So just to start, I want to begin with a simple keyword search and add gradual layers of complexity with Boolean operators and those field limiters. And you can always use advanced search to construct your more complex searches, but I did want to share with you the underlying tools for doing so on your own as part of our deep dive. As everyone probably knows, a lot of the time we can search seal with just a simple keyword or ISBN search, and this is particularly true for items with really unique titles. But I'm going to work through an example that doesn't work with a simple search and show you how adding these additional fields can really drill down the amount of results you'd received. I'm going to try a seasonal example. I'm going to search for the book Autumn by Ali Smith using a title keyword. So I'm just going to search for Autumn. Ali Smith has a series of books that are all about seasons. So they're perfect for seal demonstrations because I can just pick whatever season we happen to be in. So in this case, autumn. So as we can see, looking at our initial results, this is 100% not an effective search term. I've gotten a lot of unrelated autumn results back, and that's because this search is not only pulling titles, but it's also matching on terms that are in item summaries, subject headings, other parts of bibliographic records. So one super quick way of dealing with this, which is kind of like my hack, is to just add another keyword that is unique to that title, because seal automatically puts the word "and" between multiple keywords. So the most common and probably effective one would be the author's last name. So I'm just going to try searching Autumn Smith. Now you're basically telling the catalog to only return results including those two words somewhere in the record. And this one is somewhat more effective. We got the book kind of in the top results, but I think we could do a little better. We could tell the catalog to be even more specific in its search by using a field limiter, and Seal has the capabilities for a variety of these, including TI equals for title, AU equals for author, SU equals for subject, and date equals for publication dates. So one thing to note with this TI equals search, this is how it would look. If the title you're searching with starts with the or any kind of article, you can generally just omit those words and it's not going to affect your results because usually those are omitted when items are cataloged. So I want to compare the effectiveness of TI equals with a different search really quickly. So I'm going to do a simple search for tabby cats, not to be super stereotypical. Oh no. I don't know if anyone else has this problem, but when people watch me typing, I get nervous and make mistakes. So I'm just going to pretend that you all have turned away. Okay, so we get around 300 results for this tabby cat search. However, if we added a TI equals, it's going to tell the catalog to only search for records that have tabby cats in the title field. And doing so, we narrow out results to just 13. So apparently it's a popular term to appear in records, but maybe not a popular title. So let's try this TI equals search with our initial search for autumn. And kind of waiting. So we've definitely made some improvements. We've limited from 20,000 records down to about 12,000. But I think we could do more to limit this search. So we can actually combine the TI equals and AU equals searches. And one thing that's a little different with these types of searches, if you want to combine terms, you have to type out "and." Otherwise, you will kind of confuse the catalog. And I say that speaking from experience. This "and" will tell the catalog very specifically to look at the title and author in bibliographic databases. So let's try it out to see how effective it is. I'm going to actually structure the author's last name how you would typically see it in a catalog record. So last name, comma, first name. You can often just search on the last name, but since Smith in particular is a little more on the general side, I wanted to add in the first name for another layer of specificity. Oh, I didn't structure it right. I forgot the "and." And well, I gave you a real-time example of what happens if you forget the "and." It doesn't work. Okay, so we limited it down to just 10 records. There are also a few other Boolean operators that you can add into your searches to create specificity. The first of these is or. It's similar to and, but instead of telling the catalog both items need to be present in search results, it's saying either of the terms could be present. And in this way, it can broaden your search a bit. So this is low-hanging fruit, but I'm going to search cats or dogs. So the catalog does a pretty good job of bringing in results from both. So you can see a few of the dogs, some of the cats. Another function that I use quite a lot is quotes. So if you add a set of quotes around your search terms, it'll tell the catalog to search those words as a single phrase. This can be really helpful when you want to search on a particular string of words, and it's really important that they stay in that order. It can also just be helpful in filtering out irrelevant results. So you can do this as a simple keyword search. So something like, how does it work? And you can also add another layer of specificity by searching only title fields for that. And that'll bring in results that have that in the title field. So the very last operator that I want to talk about is parentheses. And these are very useful if you want to incorporate multiple Boolean operators within a single search. The parentheses tell the catalog how to search that query in the way that you want. And incorporating these parentheses always makes me think of algebra. So did anyone ever have to learn the FOIL method in school? I think it was first, outside, inside, last, which might be the only thing that I've retained from math. So one example where the parentheses is needed is if you wanted to do a title search, but then also search on multiple authors using and or. So I'm just going to do one last example. Say you wanted a copy of Return of the King from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but you were okay with either the Peter Jackson movie or the book by Tolkien. You would structure it this way. And I'm actually going to copy this because I'm nervous about my ability to do this correctly in front of people. Okay, so just like scrolling back. So we would have our title, Return of the King, and then we put our or search in parentheses, which lets the catalog know we are grouping these together. Okay, so we're going ahead and search. The parentheses let the catalog know that you want the or to apply only to authors. Otherwise, it would kind of read the search string from left to right indiscriminately. And so when we do this, we get targeted results from both the films and also from the books because they are the results that have either of those authors. And if we switch this to and instead of having an or search, you'll see right away that it narrows down these results to just the DVD because these are the only ones that incorporate both of these author names. And there is a help feature in Seal for searches right here. And this does kind of lay out some of the things that I touched on, and I'll talk about those field limiter terms if you want to search on a specific field. And it also has a few examples of kind of incorporating the Boolean operator. So it lets you know how to kind of structure it the way the catalog likes. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and check for questions. Okay, so I want to pivot now and talk about some less traditional searches in Seal. I've been doing a lot of experimenting with searching, and I've been able to have some success combining searches with keywords such as format, foreign language codes, call numbers, and other terms that appear within records. And the reason that I've categorized these as more fun than functional is because the effectiveness can vary a little bit from library to library. And this is just based in individual differences in how they map bibliographic fields for Z39.50. However, I found at least some results with each of the examples that I'm going to touch on today. So this can be a useful hack if you want to quickly locate an item or explore the catalog in a different way. So someone once asked me if you could find foreign language materials in SEAL. I did a little digging and discovered there are a few things you can try to find them. One way to get some results is to combine item titles with the foreign language codes that they're assigned in the MARC record. And you can find a list of these codes by Googling MARC language codes, which is what I have to do every time because I always forget to bookmark this site. So this is a list of the codes. So you can just kind of scroll through to find whatever language you want to search for. So to demonstrate how this works, I'm going to search for very hungry caterpillar, SPA. And SPA is the 3-letter code that is typically assigned to items in Spanish. And since this title does have multiple words in it, I'm just going to use quotes to indicate that this is a phrase. So you can see that this was pretty successful. We got several copies of this book in Spanish. And you can also try it with a few other languages too. So if we tried GER, which is the code for German, we could also try FRE, which is the code for French. I will say that results searching this way can vary a little bit. It also depends on the information that the cataloger chose to include. I have found that it works particularly well for children's books that are likely to be cataloged in multiple language. It works less well for items like DVDs because these items often have subtitles in other languages, and these are usually reflected in the MARC record at some point. So in addition to these codes, language is also sometimes indicated by subject heading, and you can search SEAL using subject headings by way of those field limiters that we talked about earlier. And there's a way that you can search Library of Congress subject headings. I actually have the tab up just in case anyone's interested in. The only frustrating thing about searching this is that you kind of have to know what the term, how the term is structured. But this is a good place to kind of look up like authorized Library of Congress subject headings. So I'm going to do one example, SU equals French. Oh my God, it's French language materials. Okay. And so yeah, so this is a way of almost like browsing because it'll bring in all of the items that are that have this subject heading. The other fun thing I wanted to show you was incorporating format within your searches to really quickly narrow down results. So let's say I needed a Blu-ray edition of Jurassic Park. I could try the simple search string of Jurassic Park Blu-ray. And of course, as we just learned, you could format this with some more specificity in the title field. But you do get a lot of results searching this way, and you could swap out Blu-ray for CD. Could try DVD. There are lots of fun things you can do with that. And as I mentioned earlier, I've also been trying out searches on call numbers. I don't know what scenario you would need to search on a call number, but you can do it. So this can be a kind of a general subject search or a way to browse holdings. So just to show you, this is the Library of Congress call number for library cataloging. So if we did a search on it, we do get a pretty good variety of results. So it'll bring in all the books that have this call number. I could probably keep talking about this forever. So does anyone have any questions or thoughts on what I just touched on? I do see something in the chat. Oh, Tessa says a good refresher on Boolean searching and how to use. Thank you. hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, like I said, I've had a lot of fun kind of exploring SEAL and figuring out how to do searches, and you can do some pretty specific searches. Can you also add the publisher date in the search? Yes, you can do publisher date as well. There is a date field limiter that you can use. You could also incorporate that as a search term. So I'm trying to think if I know of a book with the publication date. Let's see. I think it was 2018, 2016. Okay, so if we tried autumn 2016. Yeah, so incorporating the publication date can be a way to kind of quickly narrow down your results. And then you can also be more specific in date equals. Any other questions? Okay, so we are kind of in the home stretch, so we might finish a little earlier. But the last thing that I wanted to talk to you was about SEAL as a regional union catalog. So Southeastern actually has a really long history of making the holdings of our regional libraries accessible to our members. And I actually have a few photos to demonstrate how this has evolved over the years. So I'm going to attempt to pull these up. So it started with printed books of regional monographs and serials. And then from then it became microfiche. And from then it moved on to discs, and this was called Cat Disc, which for some reason I think is really fun. And now, of course, the SEAL catalog holds that particular purpose. So for the last bit of the webinar, I'd like to touch on the role of the catalog as a union catalog for our region. And this is a little different than the functionality that it plays as a catalog just for ILL. So I touched earlier on these new categories, which allow users to choose whether they just want to search ILL participants or all participating libraries. So when using the catalog as a union tool, you'd want to set this to all. And when you do, it'll bring you results from all libraries in the region, regardless of their participation in ILL. I like to think of SEAL used this way as kind of a baby WorldCat. And so WorldCat is the global database managed by OCLC where libraries from across the world can upload their holdings. When you do a search in WorldCat, it'll show you which libraries a particular item is located at, and it'll also sort these results geographically so you can see libraries that are close by right away. So though WorldCat is a great tool, it just doesn't have the kind of granular results that we see in SEAL when it comes to our regional libraries. And this is particularly true for consortia such as public library system members and school library systems. I want to do a comparison search in SEAL and WorldCat just to demonstrate how SEAL does paint a fuller picture of our regional holdings. And I swear this isn't me making fun of WorldCat. I use it all the time for a lot of different purposes. So I'm going to try and do an ISBN search in WorldCat, and this is for the book Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. Okay, so I'm going to click on this title and I'm going to change to all libraries. So this gives us some of our regional libraries. It's doing a geographic search based on where I am right now, which is Kingston. So we're seeing some of our members come up. However, if we do the same search in SEAL, we're just going to see a lot more information. Each of the individual libraries from RCLS and from Mid-Hudson and from all of the academic libraries. So you just really get a sense for how widespread ownership of a particular item is within just the Southeastern region. And SEAL is really the only place where you can find this much data on our regional library holdings. This knowledge can help to serve a variety of purposes. The main thing it can be used for is directing patrons to where a specific item is located if it isn't accessible via interlibrary loan, or if they want immediate access to it. This can also be useful in conjunction with a LibGuide that we have at Southeastern called the Guest Borrowing LibGuide. So that's at libguides.sunnylark.org /guest borrowing. So this LibGuide contains the borrowing policies for guests and community members at several college libraries in our region. This is sorted into county, and each county has a list of their libraries and their policies. I'm going to open Ulster just because it happens to be where I am right now. So each entry will let you know kind of what the guest options are for borrowers, and also, if there's any stipulations, any costs, and also information on the on-site access of materials there. So basically, you could use SEAL to find out where a needed item is located, and if it's an academic library, use the LibGuide to see what kind of on-site services they have. This knowledge could also be useful for other library processes too. For example, library acquisitions. So when you're deciding whether to purchase an item, it can be helpful to kind of take a look and see how many other libraries already have it. So for instance, if it's something that's owned by a lot of other libraries and you could get it easily through SEAL or other ILL services, it might not be a necessary item to purchase. And I'm sure there are a lot of other ways that this can be useful too. Does anyone have any questions about the catalog as a union catalog? Okay, so I'm going to stop my share. So we actually finished a little early today, but I want to thank everyone again for taking time to attend this webinar. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to see so many people interested in the SEAL catalog. I'm really fascinated by the catalog and all the different ways that it can be used. And if you have any questions going forward relating to what we discussed today, or just SEAL in general, you can always shoot me an email at kelsey@cinelark.org. And as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, I'm going to be sending along any relevant materials from today, such as the recording and then the PowerPoint. So just to check, any last questions or anything anyone wants to kind of talk about? Yeah, so I guess if that's everything, we'll just kind of end a little bit early. You get 20 minutes back. So, and then if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. So thanks, everybody.